can be complicated and it can last
Looks like it's
a
working.
lifetime. Living with
Looks
the
like it's
condition
working.
can sometimes be a challenge. It may take years to accept the final diagnosis, and it's not always easy to find the right
Stressful.
Do it yourself.
Wow.
Did you know that
I'm trying-
75%
it's on. I was trying to get the
of
camera
children
going.
and adolescents with ADHD
Oh.
have at least one additional mental health condition that also requires a comprehensive approach to treatment. ADHD guidelines were
So all the
recently
topics are pretty
updated to
straightforward.
reflect the need to
Just feel free to
screen
chime
for
in.
associated disorders.
Where do you want people to go? The
Be
website?
sure to talk with your child's doctor about proper screening and visit more2adhd.com for additional information. That's more2adhd.com. This message has been brought to you in partnership with ADA, ACO, and CHAD.
This is
We can talk about the upcoming Fed meeting, too, 'cause it's like at the
860
end of the week.
AM Talk Radio in Philadelphia.
Sure you
Like
can
us on
so-
Facebook and follow us on
Come
Twitter.
on, man.
WWD 1 in Philadelphia and WPEN HD2 Burlington, Philadelphia.
So when you talk, you probably want to talk like in the microphone, like a
Hello,
little
this is
closer.
Dr.
It's too far away. It won't hit.
And it's cancer. As a parent, when you're told this type of news, you're gonna do whatever you can do for your babies. When we got to St. Jude is when I realized that, no, you're not gonna get a bill for anything. I don't have to worry about it. They're saying we're gonna help save her, we're not gonna charge you anything.
You guys
This
going
is
down to
what
your
we do.
parents' place at all?
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children.
Exhausted.
30 seconds.
A crooked
Remember
teeth
that age,
may
you gotta have
embarrass
like a double
kids whose
stroller and all that
families
stuff.
can't afford
You gotta
braces.
whack
And trying to fix their teeth themselves can make things worse.
We have like the,
Luckily,
like the
there's
wheels
donated
inside. Oh, yeah, it's like
orthodontic
a-
services,
I'll send you a
a
picture.
program from the American Association of Orthodontists. For children and teens who qualify
I'm
and
sorry, I'm
are
gonna keep
matched
carrying
with a
stuff. Like Leo's 10.
orthodontist, treatment can be
Give me a recording on
life-changing
my chair. I'm on the game.
and help them smile with confidence. Learn more
Like told
at
you, man. Like,
88step.org.
WWDB Philadelphia,
you ready?
the talk station.
Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacy Mitchell. Sarah Timon's in traffic. No surprise with being close to the Schuylkill Expressway. And we've got special guest Evan Roscoes from FBO Services. He's here for the whole show. Financial expert, good friend of mine. And Stacy, Sarah, and I, we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're streaming live every week on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just look up Tom Toole Sales Group. So, Evan, first of all, thanks for coming on, man. Evan is a little nervous here. He told me he had anxiety as soon as I asked him to come on the show. And we even got the stream set up on our own today. I'm very proud of this. This is like fixing your own air
You do that
conditioner.
yourself.
Somebody
That's
did.
awesome.
So we're live. Hopefully people can give us a comment if we're live on YouTube. So we're going to get all into FBO Services, Inc. at the third segment. They are a family office when it comes to investing in finances and accounting. First, we want to talk about what's been going on in the housing market. And it was a good week for inventory. We've got a Fed meeting looming large here as we get towards the end of the month. So here's the latest national stats. We saw listings week over week rise by 8,815 homes. We saw 30-year rates settle in around 7%. That seems to be where they've been trending. We saw like one day last week where they were at 6 7/8. And purchase applications were down 1% week to week. I'm pretty encouraged by inventory, Stacy. What's your reaction to all this?
Anytime that there's a bump in the inventory is a good week or a good day or whatever. I think that's very positive news. The mortgage interest rates, we kind of feel that they'll be around this area for at least another couple of months. And the purchase apps being down, I mean, honestly, I think there's a lot of people that are preoccupied right now with vacations. So that's not surprising to me. The people that are very motivated and have to be settled before the start of the school year, they're the ones that are out there still driving the market at this point. But there are, I've had a number of clients, go out of town for a couple of weeks or out of country. People are taking advantage of the summertime break.
Well, that's very realistic because a lot of folks, and especially most of these agents that are out there, they're not used to this seasonal market that we see every year. And if you look at like the middle of July to about mid-August. I mean, I saw someone post on social that school starts in 36 days, which is insane to me.
Wow.
And you know, and we're sitting
Just
here.
let out.
It's a lot shorter. Summer's a lot shorter than it used to be, but you have this serious block of vacations that happen no matter what. We were just talking about it kind of goes like 4th of July up until about like that second, third week in August, and then school starts to go back right before Labor Day. So there are folks out there that are pausing from the market because they have other things going on in their lives, and then typically you see a run up on the market heading into the fall. So that doesn't surprise me. The good news here that I see is we've seen inventory rise. And if you look at just what's happened locally in our market, the past 7 days in the Bright MLS, which is how we chart everything, we saw 155 coming soon homes come to the market, 403 new actives, and 65 back to actives. So that puts us at about 600 homes over the past 7 days. And I'm clear that our market is probably more seasonally affected than some of these other places that are out there because people are going to the beach and they have these destinations around. If you look at the numbers nationally, inventory's up, but if you look at where it was the same week last year, we're not that far off. We've kind of caught up to where we were last July, where the same week last year, July 15th to July 22nd in 2022, we were at 525,000 and change active homes. Right now we're at 479. That gap has been a lot bigger earlier in the year. So we're closing the gap down, which is good for homeowners. And a lot of, I think what happens in the market here, if we're going to see more inventory continue to come, is going to be based on what happens in the Fed meeting later this week. So what's your predictions for the Fed meeting? What do you think, Stacy? And Evan, if you want to chime in, feel free.
Well, I think they're definitely going to raise it another 0.25 basis points. So that has already been established. The good news is the Fed is signaling, or, you know, it's been announced that the interest rate or the inflation rate was at 3%. They made this big announcement, fanfare, confetti. Oh, we're down to 3%. So to me, that signals that the Fed's going to back off after this last raise. So I think after they raise it this next time, the next couple of times they meet, it's going to just be no change, no change, no change. And I think at that point, then it will settle some of the fears of the market. It's going to help, people that are entertaining buying a house or selling a house, as long as the interest rates remain steady or decrease. There's a possibility they could go down.
That would be nice.
That would be great. Then I think that's when we're going to really see some inventory come onto the market.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that they are going to keep raising to get this inflation under wraps, but and probably hold cutting down for the year. And I think, with Biden's, presidential elections, when they're going to start to cut to juice this economy.
That's a really great point, is that we got an election year coming up. And, the past couple elections have been very hotly contested. I mean, it's like no holds barred to get these folks elected. So I don't see the current administration, and this is not a political comment, this is a strategy comment to win the election. They're not going to want to be jamming rate hikes leading up to the election. That's not what they want to do. So that's a really great point, Evan. Love that. And Stacy, what the probability, we pulled this up, I feel like every week. It's on cmegroup.com. Sarah Timon's here, everybody. The show can officially start. So they chart the likelihood that we're going to see a probability of a Fed rate increase. We are at a 98.9% chance they increase by 25 points. And now, for the first time in months, a 1.1% chance it's a 50 basis point increase.
Oh.
I really hope that doesn't happen. But before, when they would chart this, it was like, here's the chance of a 0% rate increase versus here's the chance of a 25 basis point increase. So if I was betting for all I'm sure you can bet on this somewhere. There's not like a DraftKings app for the Fed rate hikes. I mean, it's got to be out there. I would bet on the 25 basis point increase. So looking at that, and then we'll let Sarah get settled here and get her take on this. We're still seeing this wide spread on the 10-year versus where the interest rates are coming in, because there's all this risk that was associated with that banking crisis with Silicon Valley Bank and these other places. And until we see inflation come down, I think there's still going to be that measured risk there. That's what a lot of experts are predicting. And we've got a lot more news happening this week besides just the Fed meeting. There's the FHFA house price index and the Case-Shiller home price index that's going to come out. We'll get new home sales this week, pending home sales. And then we'll have a PCE inflation report on Friday. So there's a lot of stuff that could affect the bond market and how rates continue to move or not move as we get through the end of the week here. So it'll be a pretty interesting week when it comes to data, and we'll see how the market reacts. So Sarah, I know you just got here. Inventory's up, rates are holding steady. What are you seeing in the market with your clients right now? How are they reacting to a bump in inventory and some steadiness in rates?
Positively. Yeah, I think that people are excited to see more things continue to come to the market. At the same time, though, I think as more things come out, there are some properties that maybe would be a good fit that they're kind of holding off on because they think something better may come along. So, just trying to look at each place individually. I think the rates being a bit more stable has been, again, positive. It just makes people feel more comfortable, in the decisions that they're making.
So are you feeling the same thing, Stacey? Because it seems like that consumers are kind of okay with what's going on right now. And I even had a conversation with someone that you and I have both spoken to today, and the conversation was, hey, we'd love to make a move. We got this 3.25% rate. And I don't know that it makes sense to double it's not even doubling their costs. It's like doubling or tripling their monthly payment right now to go to a 7. So are you seeing a lot of that in the market as well?
The people who have the low interest rates and no real motivation to move are the ones that are most likely to stay put. They're just going to ride it out.
So how do you determine that? Like, how do you determine motivation? Or Sarah, feel free to chime in here. What do you call a top prospect? Like, what are the characteristics surrounding those folks? Because this is where a lot of real estate agents get stuck. They say, like, people say the right things, but then their actions kind of dictate something differently. Like, they don't communicate with you. They don't do the things that they're supposed to do. So how do you determine that? And I think it's as important for the consumer to determine if they're really serious about moving, because a lot of people have these ideas, but they don't necessarily think it all through. So how are you guys managing expectations right now, knowing that rates probably could go down later in the year, but they're at 7% now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say looking for people that are motivated, meaning they have a reason to make the move, whether it's, upsizing or downsizing or, relocating, whatever the reason is, that there's some outside pressure that's kind of making them want to make a jump and do something, and not just stay put where they are. I think also having like finances in place, being like able to make a purchase is certainly important.
Really important.
So I mean, those are like definitely the top two. And I guess also, people that communicate back with you. You're having, two-way conversations. They get in touch with you when they see something, they respond to you and you send them something, and it's not just crickets.
Yeah, I agree. You can kind of weed them out very early on in the meeting process. If somebody tells you, right off the bat, hey, we love our house, we don't have to move. We would like to, if the opportunity presents itself. And then you have to drill down a little bit more in exactly what they would be motivated to make that move with. Is it going to be the 4 or 5 bedroom home? Is it going to be, a different school district? Sometimes that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's how I kind of measure the motivation. Are they expanding the family? Or do they want to get closer to work? They want to get out of the city and into the burbs to a different school district. Those are pretty solid motivators right there. But if it's somebody that's been in the house, about 20 years, they refi, they don't really have to move. They would like to. It's kind of they're toying with the idea. They're the ones, I stay in touch with them. I never lose contact. I keep up, follow up with them on occasion, make sure they're on drips, and check in with them to see how the home search is going. And you can track them. You can see if they're looking around at things. And then on the off chance that their perfect dream home does come up, then, you want to make sure that they're in a position that they can make a move.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, this doesn't happen often, but I have had it happen where somebody's like, oh, we're just looking if the right thing comes up. We really don't have to do anything. And then within a month, they're under contract. So like every once in a while, it does go the other way. Because I think a lot of times people tend to say like, no, I'm definitely, trying to do this, but their actions don't necessarily line up with that. But every once in a while, somebody will be like, nope, this is going to be long term, and all of a sudden they're like ready to do it.
Most people, I find, if they're renting, they can move anytime, for the most part. If someone tells me, they say we're renting, the next question I would be, when does your lease expire? And if they say, oh, we're on month to month and we can terminate anytime with a 60-day notice, then I know they're going to be ready to go if the house that they want comes on the market. It's a lot easier for renters to get out of the lease, and they have more motivation than someone who has been locked in and have the 3.5% interest rate mortgage, who are kind of, dilly-dallying with the idea of moving.
Well, and to me, the 3.25% or 4%, that's a condition, right? I mean, unless someone has a serious need to move, they're going to keep that lower cost. I mean, you think of that's the biggest cost that most people have is their housing payment, right? So if you're able to lock that in there, I mean, those are almost like golden handcuffs in a lot of cases if the house works. And so you have to understand that and not push so hard as an agent, and you have to understand that as a consumer. So I want to run one thing by you two, and Evan, feel free to chime in. I want you to tell me if these are viable or not. This was an article that Housing Wire put out there based on the objection. I list my home, but where would I move? Because this is what we're talking about here. And they put 10 solutions together. I just want to hear true or false, what you guys think being in the market. So the first one is build a home instead of chasing after the scarce resale inventory. And they go on to explain that 30% of available homes are new construction. There's advantages to that, obviously. One is that builders will give you a lower fixed rate on a line. We've seen that a lot. So I think that's a valid point here. Do you think that's a viable option for a lot of people or not? Building a new home versus chasing resale inventory?
I mean, it could be an option if they're okay with new construction, but then again, if they're on certain time constraints, it might not work. I know that in our area alone, in some really specific areas, all the new construction, we're going into 2024, so it might not work for them. And then some people, it just might not fit into their budget because there's not a whole lot of certain price points of new construction that are available out there. But it really is just case by case, and it depends on where the school districts are too, if somebody's looking for a specific school district. The other thing about new construction, I'm sorry, is, I talked to some people, well, we're just going to look for some land and we're just going to, buy a piece of land and build. And then I have to really dive in deeper with them. Like, oh, have you done this before? Have you known anybody to do this? Because that's an enormous undertaking. I don't think people quite understand the process of that. You have to meet with an architect, get some plans drawn up, put them before the township, get the approvals, get the permits. You have to perk the land. Is it public sewer? When you start talking like that, their heads explode. They don't understand.
Right. It's almost, it sounds like this like super fun like fantasy thing, like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And when you get down
HGTV.
Right. When you get down to what all goes into it, I'd agree with everything that you said. If you are flexible on time frame, I know, for instance, I just, we're still in July, earlier this month, had a settlement for a new construction that they signed on for last June, with the expectation of it being completed in about 4 months. And we were at 13 months.
Gosh.
So I think, and I guess like also depends on, obviously, price point. Is there new construction that's happening in the area that you're trying to get into? If there is, how far along in that process are they? Have they spoken to the township yet? Have they put in stormwater management? Have they built the temporary road? Because those things can take months. What could be a good option for somebody is if they got in on the tail end of a new development that was being built where all those things were in place, and that's going to significantly cut down on your time. But then I guess also making sure they're aware that the price that you see is your base package price. If you're looking at a model with different upgrades, different features in it, all of those are going to be additional items that get added on that you may or may not, depending on the builder and depending on the setup, be able to just roll into your mortgage payment. They may have to be upgrades that you pay for out of pocket separately.
Yeah, and that could really add up quickly.
Mhm.
Like if you want special lighting or just can lighting in the
Right.
living room.
Yeah.
What type of flooring do you want? Is carpet okay all the way around, or do you want hard surface flooring? It really just depends, and it can add up quite quickly.
And I think I'd agree that I think it makes sense, especially if you have time and budget. Because for me, finding a house that has all those things is so hard to do. So I mean, it's almost like chasing that inventory takes so much time and might not ever work. So I think it does make sense.
Yeah, that's a great point. So for some people it is viable, some it's not. I think that's the way to look at it. We're going to motor through the next couple of these. Buy first, close, then list previous home. To me, number one option. If you can do that, that's going to take all the stress out of moving. I don't know what you two think. And obviously you got to be financially capable to do it. You got to have the down money, access to an equity line, and be able to get approved, or you're paying cash. This is option one for everybody that's trying to buy and sell, in my view.
Mhm.
What do you
I
two
agree.
think?
100%.
Yep. I mean, I think meet with somebody, get the comps, find out what the home that you would eventually be selling would go for, so that you can kind of like have the numbers, be conservative with everything. But yeah, if you can do it, that's going to be the best way to strengthen your offer on the buy side.
All right, that one's easy. Here's where it gets a little funny. So sell first, rent for a while, and then take the time to look for the right home. What do you think about this?
I know people that are currently doing that.
How's it going for them?
Well, yeah, they're not happy in their rental. They have things in storage, so it's costing, and they're still not finding what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So they found themselves kind of in a quagmire here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would depend on, how picky they are with the new house. Like if it has to be on a certain street or in a certain neighborhood, and it has to have, X, Y, and Z, and they're not willing to like budge on those things, well, it would, if they do get the right one, it would strengthen their offer that they don't have to have a home sale contingency. They'd have to be okay potentially looking for a while.
I agree with that. I think it's you don't have as much control, but sometimes you have to sell to buy a home, and we've had these clients, and if you go on with the contingency, I think you have a big problem. It's just not buy. I mean, some people accept it. You got one accepted, so it does happen, like very recently. All right, here's the next one. Offer acceptance contingent on seller finding suitable housing. And they say give the seller like 90 to 120 days to secure the next home. And a lot of buyers today may cooperate because they're anxious about actually getting a property.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some buyers, I know a lot of the buyers that I'm working with, they would be receptive to that because if they're renting, if they're flexible, they're like, whatever the seller wants. It's not always the case though.
Right. I mean, I think it's something that as a buyer, if you do have the flexibility and you can accommodate that, it's a way to strengthen your offer without having to pay more money or give up some of your due diligences. So if you're able to do that, that's a good option.
I would probably go more for a rent back.
Right.
So that at least you're closer to a settlement date
Right.
than just having it open-ended, the seller finding suitable housing could be very
Right.
open-ended and the
Yeah.
buyers,
And I think I would definitely want like a certain date by which it
Mhm.
will settle regardless of if suitable housing is found.
I agree. And I think if you're willing to work with the seller, they might be willing to work with you. It depends how much you want the house. If it's the house you want, sometimes people are, I mean, you talked about immediately when you talked about new construction, I thought of the folks you talked about.
Yeah.
4 to 13 months is a pretty, you're talking about nine months. It's
Wow. And they sold their house and then we're having to
my.
live with family.
but they also wanted new construction.
Yeah.
They wanted a new, like it was worth it for them because they were going to
Yeah.
be there a long
And
time.
I mean, yes, and at the end, they were happy with their decision, but I'm sure there were months in there that they were like
Ready to kill each other?
"Ah."
Yeah.
Right.
All right, here's where it gets interesting. Convert the previous home into a rental.
You mean this is to avoid having a home sale contingency?
No, so you can handle the lease yourself or refer to. See, I think this doesn't make any sense. The home stays an asset for your client, and they can keep their low interest rate, and they can also buy a new home.
Well, if they're in position financially.
Yeah.
That they're able to do that.
I don't think this solves the problem if I have
Right.
nowhere to go, though. I mean, I don't really understand this one. So you're in agreement there, not a good option.
Yeah.
All right, here's the next one, leasing back the home.
For a seller,
Yes.
it's definitely, I mean, I've done it numerous
Mhm.
times. And it's the only option sometimes for sellers.
Mhm.
You have to get their home on the market first, get it sold because they
Yes.
need the proceeds.
Right.
And then, but that's all up front, spelled out. It's negotiated.
Yeah.
You know, however long it could be, 30, 60, 90 days. I think the longest I had was a 90-day.
Mhm.
Because we were kind of nervous that, you know, trying to find something and where she wanted to be in her price point
Mhm.
was going to be a difficult proposition. We got super lucky. I swear when things start to go in motion,
Mhm.
it can work out and
Yeah.
things happen and open up. And her dream house came on the market. She threw in a great offer and she got it. So her
Yes.
lease back ended early. The buyers were super happy because it got them out of their living situation sooner. So everybody was happy.
So lease back, I
Yes.
agree. I think you really have to look at this option, especially if you're not sure where you're going to go, because some sellers, they need to get their home sold before they can actually go buy something. So I agree with that one. All right, the rest of these, I'm going to group them all together and we'll call it here. Buying an RV, a houseboat, or a sailboat. Find your would-be seller an off-market home to purchase where that seller has flexibility. I agree with that one. I think if you're willing to put that time in. Then they have move into an assisted living care facility and move in with relatives. What do you think about these options?
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, it has to be right for the seller.
Right.
If they're moving into like an assisted living, that's because they're at a point in their life where
Right.
that's what makes the most sense for them.
Right.
Moving into an RV, I had a client do that.
Really?
Yeah. They lived in the RV for about 6 months. And so it was funny. They sold the house. They went into temporary housing for a couple of weeks, but when they closed and they had their proceeds, they bought the RV.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And
I mean, I guess if that's something that you would be using then later anyway, if that's kind of like if you wanted to kind of like travel, like that would potentially solve that problem for.
They didn't know where they were going to land.
Yeah.
They didn't know where they were going to end up. And
Yeah.
they just went out there, and it was during COVID anyway. So
Yeah.
they had a great experience in their RV.
Yeah.
They finally found their place where they landed. They eventually sold the RV.
Yeah.
And got into their new home in
Yeah.
the new state. So interesting.
Wait, was one of the other options we were talking about sailboat or houseboat? Was that buy or rent?
Buy.
I think those are
Well,
probably
yeah,
pricey.
Very
I mean,
easy. And you'd have to have some
boats are,
skills.
a lot of people say the happiest and saddest day when you buy the boat is the happiest day is the day you sell it. And then the saddest day is the day you buy it and realize how much maintenance
Yeah,
is there.
The
I
money
mean,
pit.
Yeah.
I think the whole point of this is that there are options out there. And if someone's really motivated, they're going to look at the options. If they're not, well, it just might be where it is. So that's the latest market update. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about a bright MLS change that is not shocking, but indicative of what we talked about last week with the MLS PIN decision. Then we're going to jump into FBO Services Inc. You can visit them at fboservicesinc.com. We've got Evan Roscoe's here. So that's it. Right now, we'll be back in 1 minute with Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Good mortgage service and great rates on your money. Look no further than
The Bright said you can put zero in as a co-op.
in the
It's the
greater
fucking difference of
Philadelphia
$1.
area for 40 years with a focus on
Why would they
smooth,
make that
easy
change?
access
Because
to
the MLS
mortgages.
PIN decision
Whether you're a
last where they had the
first-time
settlement.
buyer, upsizing or downsizing,
And like the class action
or just
lawsuits and stuff.
refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and
Hit a lot of
access
traffic
to
there.
subsidized interest rates.
Yeah, I hit some
Your
traffic,
quote is free, no costs or commitments.
and my
To
last
learn
thing
more,
is, like,
visit
ran
our
over
website
that.
at mymortgageamerica.com.
So it's good having
or
one
give us
person
a
there.
call at
I take moving the vet this
610-439-8000. We
Oh.
always have
Parent
a person available to
Is he
take
doing
your
all right?
call with a
Yeah, he's
round-the-clock
fine.
human
His
service.
eye, like
Purchase
the
your
last
home
week,
with
his family, just
personalized
one of them
local
has been
service
red and kind of
and
like losing a little bit, like
We're
just like like eye boogers or
I'm
whatever.
Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Media
And then,
Line. If you're thinking of becoming
you know,
a
we were
real estate
having
agent in the
figure out
greater
that
Philly area, I have a
it
special
was
offer
just,
for you.
took him to the
Our
that
team
for
did $165 million of volume in 2021.
$50,
making us the
right?
number one
Right.
RE/MAX team in
They tested
Pennsylvania
him for
and a top
glaucoma,
1% team
which I
nationally.
didn't realize was
Our
gonna be an
agents
additional
love us because
charge.
we offer
They
them a
had like this
successful
little pen
career,
that they just
a
like
great
put in
life,
the eye.
and an
Took
unbeatable
1 second.
culture.
That was like
Agents who've been
$90.
with us for
Oh
at
my
least
God.
a year
I
average
could have told you
30
didn't have
plus sales.
glaucoma.
Like,
Like,
our brand new agents average
remember when
17 to 24 sales a
My
year.
cat went
We
to the
offer
vet
proven
and they
systems,
wanted to
lemon,
take her
you know,
blood pressure.
we help you
Yeah,
set more
and they charged
appointments
for
and
eight
sell
for
more
her to
houses.
take her blood
Now, here's
pressure.
the
It was
offer.
$80
If you
charge.
don't have a real estate license yet,
Are you
we offer
kidding me?
real estate
Well, and it's
scholarships
like-
so you can
I
get
mean, I
one for
didn't
free.
know the cost of it
Check it
before
out
they
at
did it, but then you also would kind of feel like that pet owner.
Or
Right, if you didn't know.
Oh, they guilt you in that stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like they looked for like a scratch on his eye and did like whatever and they couldn't find it. They're like, so
Get
now the
more
next
out of
step.
your
would be
real
just
estate
to-
career, and remember the real estate golden rule.
Right.
You always get
Like
more
this-
when
this
you work
would
with
suck
Tom
if
Toole.
you
You're
didn't
gonna
get that test.
Right,
Have
right.
to sacrifice great
But
service
now,
just to
but
get
then he
a
did
great
get
rate.
some
And Mortgage America,
eye
we've
drops
been
that
lending
he's
with
gonna
this
have to
philosophy
get
for
like
over
3 times a
35
day.
years. We have access to great low rates without the
Does that.
complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers who you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including 10 seconds and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgage.
This, we're gonna do this like 10 minutes. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. She's Stacy Mitchell. And we have Evan Roscoe's here from FBO Services, Inc., a local family investing office based out of Wayne. You can visit them at fboservicesinc.com. Stacy, Sarah, and I all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018, number 11 in the country, number 7 in the state. And we're streaming live every week on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just look up Tom Toole Sales Group. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to hear your reaction. It's a little bit of a follow-up from last week, ladies. And Evan, feel free to chime in. I know this is your field of expertise, obviously, is real estate sales. So Bright MLS, our local MLS. So they cover Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland, DC, Virginia. It's the second largest MLS in the country. Starting August 9th, they are making a small change to underscore the complete flexibility of Bright subscribers to engage in transparent negotiations with their clients and no longer requiring an offer of compensation to be in the MLS. Now, you could put $1 in there and then it would go to 0. So I don't see much of a difference with the offer of compensation because $1, I mean, that doesn't do much for anybody. I don't even know what you can get for $1 these days, maybe like a soft pretzel or something. What do you think about this? Because there's a lot more ramifications, in my view, than just you can now submit a listing without a buyer broker compensation offer. You look distraught, Stacy.
Well, I'm wondering, yeah, it's because it's kind of confusing. So yeah, there is no difference really between the 0 and the $1, but I'm wondering if the seller, do they fully understand how, if you're offering 0 compensation, because this is all agreed upon by the seller. This
Right.
is the seller's wishes. It's going to be harder for the buyer's agents to bring buyers to the home unless the buyer's agents are great at expressing their value
Mhm.
to their clients.
Right. Well, and I guess looking, if it is going to be all across the board for what, some offer, some don't, yada, yada. I know, like, typically I'm not looking at what commission I'm getting before I take somebody out. Like, if they like a house, I look at, I'm reading the information about the house. I'm looking at the seller's disclosure. I'm looking at the sales history. I'm not like looking at like, in order to determine if I'm going to take them or not, like, well, what's the percentage of the commission split that would go to me? It's like, because you assume it's kind of there's a range, but like you just kind of assume it's in there. Sometimes for new construction, I will look because they can be sneaky. Yes, it would also be unfortunate if you got your buyer out there, they really liked it, and then as you're further into like them being interested and maybe wanting to put in an offer, then realizing, okay, now we have to cover this as well,
Mhm. Right. You have to have that discussion
Right.
about compensation. But yeah, Sarah, I'm like you. I don't look for that.
Yeah.
That's not I dive right into the showing schedule first to
Right.
see, okay, how busy is it?
Right.
Can I get my clients in the time they want to see it?
Right. And then you book it, and then you go in, and then you
Check
want
out
to
the
like
seller's
secure your time
disclosure,
slot,
yes.
and then you want to like go in and like read all the things and get them the information. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'm not even really looking at that split until like sometimes like after you put the offer,
Right.
you know, because
You're
like
under contract, and then you
right, and then
go
when you
over some
fill out your
details.
little like
Yes, yes.
sheet in dot loop, then you're like, oh, I guess I should see what that is.
Right.
Well,
I agree.
you guys are, because you put clients first, right? I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, I had a major hand in training both of you. I mean, we work together a lot, and that's how you should be proceeding. And that's always going to be the case. And the challenge here is that not enough agents even attempt to communicate value. They just want to go start showing people properties, and they just want to get them out there, and they default to, hey, if I'm the one that brings them the right house, then I'm going to be the one that makes the commission, instead of educating consumers, talking to them about how the process works. And it's not just one process, it's the buying process, the purchase process, the lending process, what's going on in the market, and what actually the buyer wants to accomplish with the home purchase, what their goals are. And so many folks don't even consider this. They just want to get them out and they start showing homes. And it's like, I liken this to dating, where you meet somebody and you want to go out on like the third date and like take them home to meet your parents, instead of, hey, let's get to know each other and see if there's actually a connection here. And that's the step most salespeople don't know how to do. They have commission breath, and it's a problem. This is also related, obviously, to these lawsuits. So we have these class action lawsuits, the Merle and the Sitzer Burnett case about the home seller plaintiffs that, and they're slated to go to trial in October. This is coming up. Now, let's see if it gets delayed or whatnot. Bright is one of 20 MLSs named as a co-conspirator in the case. NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has come out and said they support the decision that Bright made. I think this is going to be like a change that happens across the board. That's just my guess. The thing I don't get is that on the other side of this, and I want to hear your reaction. And Evan, you've been on the transaction side here, so feel free to chime in. What's going to happen to these buyers that don't know what's going on? And now, because of the lack of compensation, they're going to be forced to deal with listing agents, or, to your point, agents won't, hey, I'm not showing you that house. I'm not making any money off of it, which there's ways around, by the way, and you can negotiate that. There's PAR documents that allow for it. What do you think happens to those folks? Because a VA buyer's in a lot of trouble here. They can't, even if they have to pay any fees.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to. So VA's banned that. Or some of these folks, they get into these homes, literally, they have like $10 left over. I mean, they're putting all their money to get into the house. So for the folks that don't understand that or financially can't, and now they're forced to pay a fee, I think those are the people that are going to be damaged the most. And it might cost the sellers money if people aren't bringing all the buyers through. Because you're doing things the right way doesn't mean everyone does. I mean, that's just the reality. So what does everyone think here?
I think the buyers definitely get hurt.
Oh yeah.
Because first of all, if they're forced to deal with the listing agent is, working 100% for the seller.
Right.
So then you have, if there's dual agency, I don't know, I don't think that ever really goes too smoothly. I don't like to be in that situation, right? Personally, because it's all about perception. Somebody could perceive something. So it, could create issues. But the buyer, and the whole reason why it is the way it is now is because buyers were getting hurt. Because the buyers were the ones either have to hire an attorney, and you know how that goes half the time.
Right.
Or they had to deal with listing agents and it didn't go smoothly.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's, as you get to know your clients and you've put in offers, you generally know like what their comfort level is for how risky they're willing to go in order to get the deal, right? So if you know that they are definitely going to want inspections, or if you like put in language there for like parameters to kind of strengthen things or word things a little bit more favorably for the seller, like you might know like they in 99% of the cases are going to want inspections. Well, if they are dealing just with the listing agent and the listing agent's the one drawing up the paperwork, and like whether or not they say that they're doing it this way or not, the buyer might not know what to look for in that contract and what is covered and what isn't. So maybe they get under contract, maybe they put down their deposit, then they realize that they don't have these different due diligences in place, they're not comfortable moving forward, and then they lose their deposit money. Well, now maybe they have to wait another year to re-save up or to, you know what I mean? Maybe that might have been their one shot at getting something. So.
And I mean, it sounds to me just like as somebody that doesn't understand all of exactly that.
Sure.
It makes it more difficult for clients or consumers to really know what's going on, and more opportunity for your, I guess, your profession to have a bad rap because people aren't going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
There's going to be more stories of like,
Yes.
well, this person did this and this, blah. So I don't know, that'd be my concern. And then maybe just a lot more of a having to walk through your clients with how everything works is always more difficult and time consuming.
I do see an opportunity here for people that really want to help folks. I mean, that's why I got into the business. When Evan and I were in business school together at Syracuse, and it was like I decided there's a need here for the market where there's so many bad agents out there. So maybe you'll see some people leave, or it levels up the professionalism. So I think that's how hopefully the industry does react. I just don't know what's going to happen here. So this is the first of a couple things that are going to start to come down. I'm clear this could end up anywhere with a small change to the contract to buyer agency being obliterated. I mean, it could go any way with these class action lawsuits, and we'll see what happens. I mean, you got companies like Remax, Keller Williams, Anywhere, Home Services. They're all named in this suit, and I don't think they're going to settle like MLS Pin did up in Massachusetts. So stay tuned on this one. We've been talking about this a while. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk with Evan Raskos from FBO Services. You can visit their website, FBO Services Inc., talk all about family offices and how they benefit folks and help people. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
The red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or
Big radio
online bank.
debut.
At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and
You
detailed
text me like I have
service.
anxiety already being on.
We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements.
Remember the first show we did? Like, I was nervous as hell. We had to come here on that Sunday.
Pre-approval is
Oh, you
free,
been doing this?
no costs or commitments.
I think it's
For
like
more
2 years
information,
now.
visit our
How old's
website
Maddie?
at mymortgageamerica.com.
She's 2 in May,
Give
So
us
it
a
was
call
right before you had her.
610-439-8000.
Yeah, it was right. Yeah, so that's about, it's a little over 2 years.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending on this philosophy for 35 years. We have access to rates.
I mean, we do like social stuff in the stream, and I'm like, that's where it's at. Like, yeah, I mean, this is like, it's like easier to get people to come here. Like, let's take her off the
We
podcast.
specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer.
Hey, Garrett Stubbs
No
on.
down payment options. For your
Back
free
up,
pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania
You guys got any
with over
questions for Evan?
$165 million in volume for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great place to work with and to work for. No one knows Greater Philly better. 1 minute. We know real estate, but more importantly, we're real people.
Yeah. So
We
I'm
hire
just
the
really
best
kind of,
agents, and we give them all
I'll
the
tee it up.
tools to
family
succeed.
offices.
Even our
Administration.
brand new
Listening,
agents
you
sell
guys can be
17 to
questioning.
24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor. Because this isn't a transaction to us, it's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom
Yeah, so
Toole
we don't
Sales
do any
Group at
investment
Remax main
management.
line at 610
I was gonna say,
692
tell us about the company.
6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Sell your home. 20 seconds. Remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole. Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? What? 10 seconds or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales main line.
All right. We are back on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacy Mitchell. She's Sarah Timon. We've got special guest in the house, Evan Raskos from FBO Services. You can visit their website, fboservicesinc.com. They're a local family office. So, Evan, just tell us about the company, and we'll start there.
So, the company was started by my father probably in 2003. He's been in family office for all of his career. Kind of the history is that he started with working for, accounting firm that worked for, the Pugh family and did all of their family stuff.
Wow.
He went and worked for the family, and then, kind of the main people that were, funding it all, the matriarch passed away. So they kind of converted into a multi-family office and started serving all the individual family members individually. So doing their tax and accounting.
Love it. So What is a family office for people that don't know? Because I hear this term thrown around all the time. I don't think a lot of people actually know what it means. Similar to real estate, people don't know until they know.
Sure. So I'll go through kind of the history of it. I have a little cheat sheet here. So, really, if we go way back in time, the first time we kind of look at it is basically, the king's exchequer, who was basically the financial manager and accountant for the king.
Mhm.
And so then, the next evolution really was, the Gilded Age, when we had the robber barons who had this wealth and homes. You had these cottages in Newport, Rhode Island, and they had so much wealth. Even the European, couldn't believe the commoners would have this much wealth. And it's continued in the 19th and 20th centuries. These families had all this personal operations for their personal empires. So primarily, family office handled most things on the expense side because they had huge living expenses and they need somebody to basically take care of all this in a similar fashion that a business would take care of everything. It's kind of the accountants for the family. So this is kind of one of the things like on the evolution where these old families had all this money that was coming off coal, steel, railroads. So their accounting departments were, or their family office was mostly expense, paying for all of their lifestyle. So we'll come to that how that's changed currently at the end. But just moving through, the Gilded Age ended, the World War I, the Depression, and they kind of disappeared in the 80s. Although there were some that still were around to handle, this vast wealth, but they just weren't as prevalent. And, they had to keep track of all this, wealth, but there just weren't as many, which then changed a lot in the 1990s when concentrated started to get, wealth got concentrated again. We saw more and more very, very wealthy individuals. And instead of having these big companies that kicked off a lot of cash, now we have a lot of individuals that have sold their company. And so we have a lot of liquidity events. So a lot of family offices we see are being driven by these liquidity events. So somebody starts a company, they sell it for a couple $100 million. Now they need somebody to take care of all this money they made. So that's kind of where we are today, where we still have the expense side, which is what we mostly do: expense, tax, accounting, reporting. But there's also this investment management side, which is investing the assets in private equity. So our company, we're primarily accountants, so we do mostly the accounting and tax for these individuals.
I mean, I'd imagine these are pretty complicated tax returns to do. It's not like your typical W-2 or even like a 1099 person like we all are. So I mean, it sounds like it's a big endeavor, especially when you're dealing with that much wealth, and the tax obligations got to be huge for some of these folks.
And it really is, and a lot of it's with the entities. So we're seeing a lot of entities, people have real estate investments, and especially with real estate, they create LLCs all the time. So there's a lot of that back and forth, and then the money, moving the money around. So one LLC wants to buy a new property, they need some money, they have to get it from all the other ones. So there's a lot of moving parts that all ends up on their individual return, but there's all these, entities and trust behind it.
Well, and that's how you protect yourself. Is like, I mean, that because there's so much risk involved when you have that much money, and you become a target. Let's face it. I mean, that's what happens to a lot of these folks.
Sure, absolutely. And so a lot of it is, doing their estate plan and, liability, as well as, tax planning, for multiple generations. So there's a lot of moving parts. We kind of say it's kind of like running your own household, but if your household was very, very, very complicated. So, it gets complicated with, size and scale.
Love it. So again, you can visit their website. It's fboservicesinc.com. So you went through the history of family office, which I love. Who's your ideal client right now? If someone's listening and maybe they find themselves in this situation, or who are you looking to bring on board and help them manage their finances so you can protect them from all the risks and liabilities that are out there?
Right. So generally, we like to think that, there's multifamily offices, which is a firm like ours that serves multiple families, and there's single family offices, which do just, one family. So, I'd like to say, you have 50 million is probably where it starts to make sense, 100 million. And then if you get up to like 200, 250 million, that's when you probably start to think about your own family office and hiring your own people. Now, we would help you get up and running, set it up. But it gets to this point where you don't want to outsource everything because you're big enough to do it all yourself. So I'd say probably when you start to have, a lot of heartache and headaches about, there's too many different entities and the tax returns and getting all the stuff together and even paying your own bills, you're sick of doing it. You have multiple houses, that's where you can, hire us, and basically we'll change the address and have all the bills come to us and pay everything and put it all together for you nice and easy. You don't have to waste your time on it.
Oh, that's nice.
Wow. First
Everything
of all,
just goes to you, and you guys just take care of all of it.
Yep. So if you
But you have
travel,
to have the money to do it.
well, I've learned something. I didn't know there was such thing as a family office.
Yeah.
And what it was.
Right.
And the history of that is fascinating to me. So thanks for sharing the history of
course.
that. So, but yeah, to think that there is a need for services like this is even more
Yeah.
fascinating.
So would like a source where you get different clients from, are there accountants that deal with maybe these individuals prior to them? Like, you said you're like the cap for where it makes sense for your firm might be like the 200 million or whatever. And then after that, they might want to like do their own. Are there companies that would be, our cap is at up to 50 million, and then it makes sense for you to like switch into something like your company, and then they kind of hand them off to you? Is it like a little chain?
Sure. So, I mean, a lot of it, I think, is, certain accounting firms, they aren't really set up to kind of do what we do. So a lot of the kind of personal, like day-to-day administrative and,
Yeah.
The touching base with clients, every day or, every week at least. So a lot of times when clients start to need more and more service is kind of where it makes sense for us to bring in versus, accounting firm is just kind of really just focus on tax returns.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the main area where it changed.
Do you find many people trying to like hide money in shell companies?
No, I don't think there's a lot of hiding. I think there's a lot of
I think it's probably impossible to hide things anymore. I mean, it's got to be way harder, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. Well, with all the different rules there are, yeah, it's hard. But I think more so just when we get a new client, just understanding where everything is, because there tends to be so many different entangled entities that people don't even really understand or know exactly how it's going.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. I guess the other thing that we do a lot of, especially when interest rates were so low as far as real estate is, when these wealthy families want to buy a house or buy a property, we do a lot with the mortgage underwriting because they want all sorts of information. They want all the K1. So a lot of times that's a big endeavor, especially the refinance as well, to provide everything that the bankers want, which seems to be, ridiculous these days.
Yeah.
That's a really great point. I mean, I've been through this with clients, and when you have like an LLC and you got some investment properties, and then the bank thinks there's like a higher risk profile. So that's a really great observation, because there's a lot of folks that try to do all this stuff on their own, and it does become tough to manage. I mean, that's super important. I'm on your website here. Talk to me about the Goldilocks reports. I think this is a great thing to provide because people want to know what's going on, but they don't need to know everything. That's why they're hiring you guys.
Sure. So like a lot of times we'll have clients that'll have a lot of different trusts and different LLCs and brokerage statements. And, they have, let's say, 4 or 5 houses. And, kind of the Goldilocks reports is, it's not too much. So it's not basically everything, hundreds of pages or, 20 or 30 pages, but, it's not just a couple of things. So we kind of put it on one page, cash flow, basically, here's where your money's coming from. Here's where it's going. Here's where the other sources uses, and give them just reports that are digestible and understandable, so they can look at it, one page. So that's the idea of the Goldilocks, not too much, not too little, just the right amount.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I think that's huge, because I mean, just as a business owner, you probably go through the same thing with your own business. There's certain like numbers and KPIs you want to make sure where they're trending and all that. And when you've got $50 million or more and you don't know what the heck is going on, that's how you hear these stories of like people, they just lose their money because their buddy's taking care of it. And you're laughing, but this is real life.
It's
so
true. Yeah.
happens to athletes all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
It very much does, yeah. And it's scary because I think it's easy to let these things get away from you and not know what's happening and to think that you're fine, but you're not. So I think it's, and that's where we are, we're accountants, so, CPAs, and we like double entry. So we're very much into reconciling all the bank accounts and making sure everything's there, and not just being, kind of, I feel like some people are more fly by their seat, not as disciplined.
Makes me nervous just even talking about this.
I know.
With that kind of money
There's
involved.
a huge trust factor. How do you build that trust with clients?
I think it's just something that comes over time. So, I mean, after we, work with them for a little bit and show them everything, a trust does develop. And really, a lot of it comes down to, our people to kind of do most of the work, do all the work actually. So they develop great relationships with the clients and touch base with them so often. So I think that it's one of those things just over time, the more and more we do, we kind of help them, save their time and be comfortable with what's going on.
Wow.
So what's like the stress test? Do you ever put like people through this to like determine if they really need this kind of service or not? Like, I mean, is there like if someone's feeling a certain way, and obviously, step one is having some money in the bank, right? Like Sarah said, like, I mean, this sounds amazing I would love this. I mean, I think it's fantastic. Like not having to worry about all this stuff. What are some of the characteristics of folks that you see or companies or families that you help where this is happening for them and like there's like a criteria, like they have the similar set of problems, right? Because you're solving a problem here.
So, I mean, the one thing that we see a lot is, liquidity events. A lot of times people have these companies and, their controller is doing all of this stuff for them. So now they sell their company and the controller goes with the company. So you need somebody to do all this stuff that they were doing. So that's really the one thing we see a lot of. I guess the other would be, we also see this sometimes when there's a death and, somebody, there's a widower who had, and the husband had all sorts of stuff going on and they didn't really know. And now what do they do? That's kind of another situation. But then just more broadly, I guess, anytime where like there's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of assets, a lot of different, houses and trusts, and there's one person doing it and they just feel overwhelmed. That's probably kind of where it makes sense to have us come in and take a look and get everything sorted out.
That's amazing. There's a lot of fun, especially you look at like the era we live in today. Like everyone's kind of got these like side businesses going on, or they have this home's in a trust, but I've got an investment LLC that handles these rental properties. And it does get complicated if you don't have someone handling that. And it's, a lot of times these people don't have any professional training. They're just kind of, somebody told them to do something, or their financial advisor said something, or their accountant did. So again, it's FBOservicesinc.com if you want to get in touch with Evan and his company. So anything else we should know about family offices? I mean, I think you have a great history. I got a very clear understanding of how you can help folks here. What's someone who maybe if they, like that people like they don't know about family offices that might be able to benefit them?
I guess one thing to know is that they are becoming more and more prevalent. So I mean, in the the investing in the financial world, you're hearing more and more about family offices. As real estate professionals, you probably are bumping into people that have family offices or who are buying something. They say, "Go to my family office." So I guess really just to know that it's kind of a new moniker for very wealthy individuals that are having professionals either outsourced or that they hire themselves take care of all of their finances and their wealth, if you will.
Love it. Very, very helpful. So it's FBOservicesinc.com. So we got a couple minutes left here, ladies. What do you got for Evan?
I guess in most cases here, you start with them and then basically, unless if their wealth caps out over where it makes sense to still be with you, they're generally either like a client for life or until, hopefully not the case, but if they lose their wealth.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. So usually they're clients for a very long time until there's some other event.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't make sense, a lot of times we've seen where either they don't have enough wealth or they have too much, then we'll kind of work with them to figure out how to simplify it or how to move forward and hire some of their own people, because it doesn't make sense for us to do it when they should just hire somebody.
Sure.
Well said. So again, you can get in touch with Evan's company. It's FBOservicesinc.com. Thanks for coming on, my friend. Really appreciate you. If you want to follow Sarah, she's on Instagram. It's at @Ty_Ty Time. You can follow Stacy at @2 Mitchko. You can follow me at TomToole3RD, all on Instagram. We're streaming live every single week. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just look up Tom Toole Sales Group. Make sure to follow and like. And if there's any, we'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. Good job, man.
That's cool. Never heard of that. Love it. Now I'm gonna listen for the buzzword. My
I hear it
family
all the
office will
time.
be in touch. Oh, okay, I got it.
Family offices. I mean, you're working with a client that can afford the house.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We'll get the
It does
deal.
get crazy though. Like, I mean, even like some of these people don't know anything's going on. Like we see the other side of it. They're like, I haven't filed my taxes until you. And I'm like,
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. They're like, be behind our taxes, or we have clients who like figure everything out. I'm like, do not have that much money. Like,
They
you
think they do. Oh my gosh.
yeah, you're looking at it, you're like,